You say you've done this kind of thing before? Silence, then.
Yep.
A long pause. Click, rattle, click. You're sure?
Yep.
Long pause. Click, whir, click. Ice?
Ripper, shut up before I cross a wire and wipe out half the city in a thermonuclear accident.
Right. Click, whir, rattle. Section 4. Working. Skill checks. Most of the time, your character will be able to do the most ordinary things without difficulty. Walk, talk, open a can of protein food complex 35 without gagging. But certain things will require that character to make a skill check to see if he can actually do what he needed to do. Ref set difficulties. Each task is rated by the referee from easy to nearly impossible. Each rating has a corresponding numerical value called a difficulty. Task difficulties range at easy being 10 above, average being 15 above, difficult being 20 above, very difficult being 25 above, and nearly impossible being 30 above. Giving it your best shot. When making a skill check, first determine which of your stats is the most appropriate to use to perform that action. For example, if you were trying to stand on your head, reflex would be best. If you were deciphering a code, intelligence would be the most appropriate. Next, if you have any one skill directly relating to the task at hand, add that skill to the stat. You may apply one skill to a task at any time. The subject of skills and how you get them is covered on pages 42 through 54. But right now, we're just interfacing you with the concept of tasks. Finally, roll 1d10 and add the combined total of your die roll, your stat, and your selected skill. Compare your total with the task difficulty, as determined by the referee. If your total is equal or higher, then you have succeeded. On a lower roll, you have failed. Here's an example. Johnny Silverhand needs to break into a locked room, a task the referee considers to require some training. As such, it has a difficulty of 15. Johnny's most applicable stat is technical, because this is a task that requires manipulating a mechanical object. Johnny isn't much of a techie. His tech stat is only +3, enough to fix his guitar strings and plug in his amp. But Johnny also picked up Pick Lock +3 as one of his early pickup skills. This gives him a base ability of 6. Johnny will need to roll at least a 9 to pick this lock. And mind you, that's out of a possible 10. How long will it take? Some sample times. Fixing a simple electronic device would take 5 minutes. Fixing a complex electronic device would take 20 minutes. Fixing a gun, 5 minutes. Fixing a laser, taser, or macer, 10 minutes. Fixing a tire, 5 to 6 minutes. Fixing an engine, 10 to 20 minutes. Rebuilding an engine, 2 days. Looking for a hidden object, 2 to 5 minutes. Opening a simple mechanical lock, 1 to 2 minutes. Opening a complex mechanical lock, 5 to 10 minutes. Opening a simple electronic lock, 3 to 4 minutes. Opening a complex electronic lock, 5 to 10 minutes. Searching a database, 5 to 20 minutes. Designing a cyber deck, 1 to 3 days. Putting on a disguise, 3 minutes. Feeling lucky, punk? Remember, you can use points from your luck stat to boost a roll. You can use any or all of your luck to do this, up to the full amount per game session, by announcing your intention to use luck points before making the roll. Difficulty modifiers. A complex repair would have a +2. Very complex repair, +4. It's never been done before, a +6. Don't have the right parts, +2. Don't have the right tools, +3. Unfamiliar tools, weapon, or vehicle, +4. Under stress, +3. Under attack, +3 to 4. Wounded, +2 to 6. Drunk, drugged, or tired, +4. Hostile environment, +4. Very hostile environment, +6. Lack of instructions for a task, +2. All the other characters are kit bizzing while you're trying to do the task, +3. Has never performed this task before, +1. Difficult acrobatics involved, +3. Very difficult acrobatics involved, +4. Impossible acrobatics involved, +5. Information hidden, secret, or obscure, +3. Well-hidden clue, secret door, panel, etc., +3. Complex program, +3. Very complex program, +5. Complex lock, +3. Very complex lock, +5. Target on guard or alerted, +3. Brightly lit area, +3. Insufficient light, +3. Pitch blackness, +4. Trying to perform a secretive task while under observation, +4. Oppose tasks. If you are making an attempt against another player character, the opposing player will combine his most applicable stat, skill, and 1d10 roll. On an equal or higher roll, the defending player wins. Difficulty modifiers. Difficulty modifiers are values which are added to the difficulty of a task, reflecting adverse conditions or extra problems. Modifiers work best when you are dealing with very ticklish or picky situations. Things where life and death tasks must be performed. At these times, players will want every advantage they can get, and a simple decision like, the task is very difficult, will create more friction than it's worth. At these times, you will probably want to make the steps of the task clear by creating a difficulty through stacking modifiers. In addition, modifiers allow you, as the referee, to determine the relative difficulty of doing something and the effect of prevailing conditions. Automatic failure, critical success. On a natural die of 1, you have failed, roll an additional 1d10 and check the result on the fumble table in page 43 to see what, if anything, happens. On a natural roll of 10, you have had a critical success. Roll an additional 1d10 and add it to your original roll. This is when you get lucky and manage to pull off something you have no chance in Hades of normally doing. Even the best of us blows it sometimes. Even you, the management. Skills. Skills are used to enhance ability to perform certain tasks. They represent things you've specifically taken the time to learn and possibly master, as opposed to your stats, which only indicate a basic natural ability at doing something. For example, if you had a very good reflex, you would probably pick up driving a car very easily, but you would not know how to drive a car until you had learned the skill driving. Each skill is related in some way to one of your basic stats. For example, the skill of handgun is always related to the character's reflex stat. Skills are always rated from 0 to 10, with 1 being a novice of the knowledge and 10 being a master's level of ability. Skills are described on pages 46 to 53, along with all pertinent notes and explanations. In addition, players may opt to invent their own skills. See Inventing New Skills on page 54. The fumble table. Area, reflex, in combat. Results of roll. 1 through 4, no fumble, you just screw up. 5 makes you drop your weapon. 6, your weapon discharges. Make reliability roll for non-auto weapon. Or strike something harmless. 7, weapon jams. Make reliability roll for non-auto weapon. 8, you manage to wound yourself. Roll for location. 9 through 10, you manage to wound a member of your own party. Reflex, athletics. 1 through 4, no fumble. You just mess up and make an idiot of yourself. 5 through 7, you fail miserably. Take 1 point in minor damage. Sprain, fall, stumble, plus make a save versus stun. 8 through 10, you fail abysmally. If a physical action, take 1d6 in damage from falling or strained muscles. Also, make a roll versus stun at -1. Tech, repair or create. 1 through 4, no fumble. You just can't get it together. 5 through 7, you not only fail, you make it worse. You drop the tools you're working with, or you lose your grip and damage the thing you're working with even more. Raise the difficulty by 5 points and try again. 8 through 10, wow, did you ever blow it. You damage the device or creation beyond repair. Buy a new one. Empathy, convince, fast talk, seduce. 1 through 4, no fumble. They just won't buy it. 5 through 6, so much for your people skills. You not only don't convince them, you leave them totally cold. -4 to your next empathy die roll to any other suggestion you might have. 7 through 10, yow, you blew it royally. You not only didn't convince them, but now they're actually violently opposed to anything you want to do. Roll 1d10, and on a 1 through 4, they actually attempt to do you physical harm. Intelligence, figure out, notice, catch a clue. 1 through 4, no fumble. You just don't know how to do it. You don't know what's going on, you carry on oblivious to higher concerns. 5 through 7, you don't know anything about what's going on, and you haven't a clue how to do anything about it. Make a convince check at -2 to see if anyone else notices how dumb you are. 8 through 10, wow, you are oblivious. You not only don't know what's going on or anything about the subject, but everyone knows how ignorant you are. Starting skills. There are 2 types of starting skills, career skill packages and pickup skills. The career skill package is a group of skills that are known by your character as part of his or her career. They're basics. Rocker knows how to play instruments, solos know how to shoot guns, etc. A starting character receives 40 points to distribute among his 10 career skills. He may not use these points on his pickup skills, although he can choose to use future improvement points, page 44, to improve a career skill at any later time. He does not have to put points into all of his career skills, but it's a good idea, you never know. Important, it is required that one of your character's career skills be the special ability for his or her class, page 46. These skills are unique to the class and reflect abilities and resources only that particular class possesses. Examples are the authority of cops, which allows them to use the weight and powers of the law, or the charismatic leadership, which allows a rocker boy to convince a crowd to get down and party, or get out and riot. The number of points you put into your special ability, up to but not greater than 10, reflects your position in your chosen field and development of your unique career skill. Because of this, your special ability also determines how much money you have to start with, on page 58. Obviously, while spreading those career points around, it's going to be pretty tempting to make yourself a wealthy superstar. But remember, a rocker with lots of charismatic leadership and no performance skills will find that things can get ugly fast. They may love you, but they paid €60 for those tickets, so you'd better be smoking. Example, as a rocker boy, Johnny Silverhand began with the following package: charismatic leadership at +6, notice at +3, perform at +5, style at +4, composition at +4, brawling at +2, play instrument at +5, streetwise at +3, persuasion at +5, seduction at +3, for a total of 40. I used to think I could get by with a razor smile and a fist full of chips, but if you're gonna rock and roll, you have to know how to squeeze every last drop of pain out of your instrument. And that takes skill, Chumba, not chips. Johnny Silverhand. Creating new character roles. Pick any 9 skills, not special ability skills, to be your career skills. These should be skills that directly relate to what the character does for a living. A rocker boy, for example, wouldn't have the brain surgery as a career skill. Now pick or create a special ability with the ref's help. Divide 40 points between these 10 skills. Model actress would have a pose, notice, personal grooming, wardrobe and style, education, photo and film, seduction, persuasion, perform, and social. A politician would have charismatic leadership, notice, education, wardrobe and style, composition, persuasion, oratory, social, history, and library search. Career skills list as follows. Solo could have combat sense, awareness and notice, handgun, brawling or martial arts, melee, weapons tech, rifle, athletics, submachine gun, and stealth. A nomad would have family, awareness and notice, endurance, melee, rifle, drive, basic tech, wilderness survival, brawling, and athletics. A rocker boy would have charismatic leadership, awareness, notice, perform, wardrobe and style, composition, brawling, play instrument, streetwise, persuasion, seduction. Netrunner would have interface, awareness and notice, basic tech, education, system knowledge, cyber tech, cyber deck design, composition, electronics, programming. A corporate would have resources, awareness, notice, human perception, education, library search, social, persuasion, stock market, wardrobe and style, personal grooming. Techie would have jerry-rig, awareness and notice, basic tech, cyber tech, teaching, education, electronics, any other 3 for tech skills, gyro, aero, weapons, electronics, security. MegTech would have medical tech, awareness, notice, basic tech, diagnose, education, cryotank operation, library search, pharmaceuticals, zoology, human perception. Media would have credibility, awareness, notice, composition, education, persuasion, human perception, social, streetwise, photo and film, interview. A cop would have authority, awareness, notice, handgun, human perception, athletics, education, brawling, melee, interrogation, streetwise, and a fixer would have street deal, awareness, notice, forgery, handgun, brawling, melee, pick lock, pickpocket, intimidate, and persuasion. Pickup skills. Pickup skills are skills the characters have learned in the course of knocking around, living his or her life. Characters determine their starting points for these skills by adding their reflex and intelligence stats. For example, Johnny's reflex is 9 and his intelligence is 7, so Johnny has 16 points to spend on pickup skills. Pickup skill points may not be used to increase your character's career skills. Skill descriptions. Following are descriptions of all Cyberpunk skills. Numbers in parentheses next to the skill names are difficulty modifiers. To reflect complex and difficult to learn skills, the number of improvement points necessary to go up 1 level must be multiplied by the difficulty modifier. See page 43 for details. Special abilities. These are skills usable only by specific character roles. For example, charismatic leadership can only be used by rockers. Authority, cops. The ability to intimidate or control others through your position as a lawman. This attribute represents the cop's ability to call on the forces of the law and government to get what he wants. Cops can use authority to question suspects, arrest wrongdoers, and defend innocents. Backed by the power of authority, a cop can arrest, detain, confiscate, and enter nearly anywhere, as long as he has the proper arrests or search warrants to back his play. However, authority is only as good as the guy holding the badge. If the cop appears uncertain of his authority, there's a good chance he'll get nailed by the people he's trying to confront. The higher your authority, the more you are able to face down the criminals, particularly high-level mobsters and officials. Authority is applied to your cool stat. Charismatic leadership, rockers. This skill allows the rocker to sway crowds equal to his level squared times 200. This ability, added to your cool stat, allows the rocker boy to control, incite, and charm large number of people through his or her performance skills. When under the Rocker's control, this group can easily be persuaded to act on his suggestions. For example, a Rocker could convince a concert crowd to riot in the street or attack a heavily fortified police line. Charismatic leadership will only work with groups of 10 or more people, as it is primarily a mob leadership ability. The higher your charismatic leadership, the larger a crowd you can control, and the more direct and complex the instructions you can get them to follow. For example, a level +3 leadership could incite a nightclub crowd to get rowdy. A level +5 or +6 could provoke a concert crowd of thousands to trash a neighborhood, if the area wasn't too far from the hall. At level +9 and higher, you have the same sort of mesmeric ability as an Adolf Hitler. You can raise armies, start movements, and destroy nations. Combat Sense, Solos. This ability is based on the Solo's constant training and professionalism. Combat Sense allows the Solo to perceive danger, notice traps, and have an almost unearthly ability to avoid harm. Your Combat Sense gives you a bonus on both your awareness and your initiative equal to your level in the Combat Sense skill. Credibility, Medias. This is the ability to be believed by your viewers, by the police, by important and powerful people. This is critical to getting your story heard and acted upon, as well as convincing people to tell you things, give you information, or get you into where the story is really happening. The higher your credibility, the more people you can convince, and the easier it is to convince your high-level authorities of the truth of your information. With a level +3 credibility, you can convince most people of minor scandals. With a level +5 or +6, you can convince local officials of military atrocities, undercover dealings, and other front-page stuff. At level +9, you can successfully expose a scandal of Watergate proportions, or convince the president of the Euro Market Finance Board that aliens are secretly influencing world leaders. Credibility applies to your intelligence stat. Family, Nomad. This is the ability to call upon resources and help of any of the members of the Nomad's large extended tribal family. This can be in the form of weapons, cash, information, or a small army of relatives. The threat of a Nomad's family's vengeance may in itself stop harm to the Nomad. The higher your family ability, the more important you are to the family, and the more help you can get to call upon. With a family status of +2, you might be able to get several of the pack to help you wreck a town, for example. With a status of +7 or +8, you are able to make major pack decisions and lead troops. At +10, you may be the leader of your pack. Family is applied to your intelligence stat. Interface, Netrunner. This skill reflects the Netrunner's ability to manipulate interface programs and is a skill used when operating menu functions such as locate, remote, run software, control remote, downlink, load, create, and delete. Other players can enter the net but cannot use the menu. Interface is based on the intelligence stat. Note for Cyberpunk 1 players, you may elect to swap your original intelligence and reflex stats for characters generated with the old rule. Jury Rig, Techie. This general repair skill allows the Techie to temporarily repair or alter anything for 1d6 turns per level of skill. This is not permanent repair. After the elapsed time, the Jury Rig will break down. Medical Tech, MedTech. This is the skill used to perform major surgery and medical repairs. For more descriptions of this skill in action, see Trauma Team, page 116. Resources, Corporate. This represents the corporate's ability to command corporation resources. It is used as a persuasion skill based on the skill of resources requested. This could include bodyguards, weapons, vehicles, buildings, money, etc. Obviously, the more powerful the corporate, the more he can call upon at any one time. Your level of resources determines exactly how much you can request from the corporation without overreaching yourself. A resource ability of +2 might get you access to a company car. An ability of +6 might allow you to use the company jet or hire a solo team from Corporate Security Division. A resource of +9 would allow you to access to almost all levels of the corporation, as well as the ability to requisition almost any company resource. Your resource ability is applied to your intelligence stat. Street Deal, Fixer. This is the ability to deal with the underground information network. With Street Deal, a fixer can uncover rumors and information, locate missing persons or things, put gossip out on the street, pick up clues, and score big deals. The higher your Street Deal ability, the more information you can gather about things happening around you. The more informants you have, and the more secretive the information you can dig up. A level +3 Street Deal can get you contacts for weapons, tools, or minor illegal operations. At level +5, you can penetrate the secrets of all but the most powerful crime families. At level +9, you are equivalent of a mafia crime lord yourself, privy to every secret that's on the street. Apply Street Deal to your cool stat. Attractiveness skills. Personal grooming. This is the skill of knowing proper grooming, hairstyling, etc. to maximize your physical attractiveness. Use of this skill allows players to increase their attractiveness and thus their chances of a successful relationship or persuasions. A basically good-looking person would be at a +2. A fashion model might have a personal grooming of +5 or +6. At 8 or better, you could be a major fashion model, film star, or trendsetter. You are always together, and you know it. Wardrobe and style, the skill of knowing the right clothes to wear, when to wear them, and how to look cool even in a spacesuit. With a wardrobe of +2 or better, you are good at choosing clothes off the rack. At +6, your friends ask for wardrobe tips, and you never buy anything off the rack. At +8 or better, you are one of those rare people whose personal style influences major fashion trends. Body type skills. Endurance. This is the ability to withstand pain or hardship, particularly over long periods of time, by knowing the best ways to conserve strength and energy. Endurance skill checks would be made whenever a character must continue to be active after a long period without food, sleep, or water. Strength feat. The user of this skill has practiced the art of bending bars, crushing objects, ripping phone books apart, and other useful parlor tricks. At +2, you can crush cans, rip thin books in half, and bend thin rods. At +8, no phone book is safe, and you can bend thin rebarb and snap handcuffs. At +10, you can bend prison bars, rip up the Gutenberg Bible, and dent car fenders with one blow. Swimming. This skill is required to know how to swim. See athletics for detail. Cool/willpower skills. Interrogation. The skill of drawing information from a subject and forcing his secrets into the open. An interrogation of +2 or better will allow you to infallibly find out if your boyfriend is lying to you. At +5, you are a professional level interrogator, equivalent to a skilled detective grilling a suspect. Mike Wallace of 60 Minutes had an interrogation of +9, allowing him to make even the most powerful people squirm. Intimidate, the skill of getting people to do what you want by force of personality or physical coercion. At +3, you can frighten almost any typical citizen, politician, or low-level thug. At +6, you can intimidate Sylvester Stallone or any moderate tough guy. At +9, you can intimidate Arnold Schwarzenegger. Oratory, the skill of public speaking. At +2, you can wing high school speech contests. At +6, you can be paid to speak in public. At +10, you are capable of delivering a speech to rival Kennedy's Ich bin ein Berliner or Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Rockers with an oratory skill of +6 or better can add +1 when using their charismatic leadership ability. Resist torture/drugs. Characters with this skill are especially toughened against interrogation, torture, and mind control drugs. A successful use of this skill will automatically increase the difficulty of any interrogation attempt made by another party by 1 level. Streetwise, the knowledge of the seamy side of life, where to get illegal and contraband things, how to talk to the criminal element, and avoiding bad situations in bad neighborhoods. With a Streetwise of +2 or better, you can get a hot items, score drugs, etc. A Streetwise of +5 would allow you to arrange a murder contract, know a few mobsters who might owe you favors, and be able to call on muscle when you need it. At a +8 or better, you could become a major crime lord yourself and skip the middleman. Empathy skills. Human perception, the skill of detecting lies, evasions, moods, and other emotional clues from others. At +2, you can usually tell when you're not getting the whole truth. At +6, you can detect subtle evasions and mood swings. At +8, you can not only detect subtle emotional cues, but can also usually tell what the subject is hiding in a general way. Interview, the skill of eliciting interesting anecdotes from an interviewee subject. This information will be a more non-specific and personal nature rather than specific knowledge. Distinguish this skill from the skill of interrogation, where the user is trying to extract exact information. Example, Barbara Walters interview, Mike Wallace interrogates. At +3 or better, the subject will usually tell you information relating to what he or she is well known for. At +6 or better, the subject will tell you anecdotes about the past, pontificate about favorite interests and philosophies, etc. At +9 or better, he or she tells you everything, including personal information about their illegitimate son, the time they stole a cookie at age 4, and the fact that no one ever loved them. Leadership, the skill of leading and convincing people to follow you. A leader with a skill of +2 can manage a small office successfully and be respected for it. A leader with a skill of +4 or better can lead a small band of troops into battle and not get backshot. A leader with a skill of +7 or better can lead the entire Gamelon Empire into battle and look good doing it. James Kirk of Star Trek has a leadership of 11, but you never will. Seduction, the skill of forming and maintaining romantic relationships. This includes your abilities as a lover. This skill may be used to determine whether or not players can form relationships with other non-player characters and the intensity of these relationships. In certain cases, referees may want to average this skill with a player's attractiveness to get a more realistic outcome. Social, the ability to deal with social situations, like knowing the right fork to use or when not to tell the joke about the farmer's daughter and the traveling cyberware salesman. A social skill of +2 or better will allow you to get by at any fine restaurant or social function. At +5, you can lunch with the president with Aplom. No social situation will faze you no matter what. At +8 or above, you can lecture Emily Post on what's proper. Perform, the skill of trained acting, singing, etc. A trained performer +4 or greater can successfully sing for payment at weddings or small clubs. Performers of +6 or greater will be considered to be out of a professional caliber and may have lucrative contracts and fans. Performers at +9 or greater are of star caliber, have a large number of fans, and may be recognized on the street. Intelligence skills, accounting, the ability to balance books or create false books, juggle numbers, create budgets, and handle day-to-day business operations. Anthropology, the knowledge of human cultures, habits, and customs, unlike Streetwise, which only covers the cultures and customs of the street, or Social, which covers only what you should do in a given situation. Anthropology covers general customs and backgrounds of a culture. For example, with Streetwise, you know what alleys to avoid and what gangs are dangerous. With Social, you know the proper forms Zaibatsu head. With Anthropology, you know that the customs of a Nentaga tribesman require that a young man kill a lion in order to be accepted as an adult male. Awareness/notice. This is equivalent to a trained observer skill, allowing characters to notice or be aware of clues, shadowers, and other events. With an awareness of +2, you will usually spot small pieces of paper and notes on them, doors left ajar, and obvious expressions of lying or dislike. An awareness of +5 or better allows you to spot fairly well-hidden clues, notice small changes in expression, and fairly sophisticated attempts to shadow you. With an awareness of +8 or greater, you routinely perform the sorts of deductive reasoning seen in the average TV cop show. The murderer was left-handed because this knife has a specialization handle. Sherlock Holmes has a +10 awareness. Players without this skill may only use their intelligence stat. Biology, general knowledge of animals, plants, and other biological systems. At level +3, you know most types of common animals and plants. At +6, you have a general understanding of genetics, cellular biology, etc. At +10, you can perform most biolab procedures, including gene mapping and splicing. Botany, the general knowledge of plants and plant identification. At level +3, you know the most common plants and can identify which ones are dangerous and why. At a +6, you can identify most important plants found worldwide and have a working knowledge of their uses. At +8, you have the equivalent of a doctorate in botany and know all about rare poisons, exotic orchids, and other useful plants. Chemistry, the required skill of mixing chemicals and creating various compounds. At level +2, chemistry is equal to high school chemistry. At level +4, equal to a trained pharmacist or college level chemist. At +8 is a trained laboratory chemist. Composition, the required skill for writing songs, articles, or stories. A composing skill of +4 or greater gives your character the ability to produce saleable work. A skill of +8 or more produces work of such a high caliber that the creator may have a strong literary following and not a little critical acclaim. Diagnose illness, the skill of clinically diagnosing symptoms and medical problems. A +3 is the equivalent of a high school nurse. You can recognize most common injuries and complaints. At +6, you would be equivalent to a trained intern. You can recognize many uncommon illnesses and know how to treat most common ones. At +9, the equivalent of a skilled diagnostician. Other physicians come to you to get a diagnosis. Education and general knowledge. This skill is the equivalent of a basic public school education, allowing you to know how to read, write, use basic math, and know enough history to get by. In effect, it is a lore or trivia skill. A level of +1 is a basic grade school education. A skill of +2 is equal to a high school equivalency. A knowledge skill of +3 is equal to a college education. A +4 or higher is equal to a master's or a doctorate. At +7, you are an extremely well-educated person and are asked to play Trivial Pursuit a lot. At +9 and above, you are one of those people who knows a lot about everything and hopefully has the good sense to keep his mouth shut. Expert. You may use the skill to be an expert on one specific subject, such as rare postage stamps, obscure weapons, a foreign language, etc. At +3, you are the local expert. At +6, you know enough to publish a few books on the subject. At +8 or better, your books are recognized as major texts on the subject, and you could do the talk show circuit if you wanted to. Gamble. The skill of knowing how to make bets, figure odds, and play games of chance successfully. As any professional gambler knows, this is not a luck skill. At +2, you are the local card shark at the Saturday night poker game. At +6, you can make a living at the tables in Vegas and Monte Carlo. At +9 or better, you can take on James Bond at roulette and stand a good chance of breaking the bank. Geology, a functional knowledge of rocks, minerals, and geological structures. At +3, you can identify most common rocks and minerals. At +6, you have the equivalent of a college degree in geology and can identify minerals and geological structures with ease. At +8, you can teach geology in high school. Hide/evade, the skill of losing pursuers, covering tracks, and otherwise evading people on your trail. At +3, you can lose most booster gangs on the rampage. At +6, you can ditch cops and private eyes. At +8, you can ditch most solos. History, the knowledge of facts and figures of past events. In gameplay, this might be used to determine if a character is familiar with a particular clue related to a past event. At +2, you have the equivalent of a grade school history education. At +6, you would have the equivalent of a college grasp on the subject. At +8, you could teach history in high school. At +9, you may have written a few of the most oft-used texts on a particular historical personage or epoch. No language, the knowledge of a foreign tongue. At +2, you can get by with speaking the language. At +3, you can actually read a written form of it. At +6 and above, you are fairly fluent, although no native will be fooled by your ability. At +8 and above, you speak and read the language like a native. Each language known requires separate no language skill. However, one may use the knowledge of a particular language with up to half, round down, proficiency with any language in the same linguistic family. Example, knowing Cantonese at +4 will give you the ability to understand and speak Mandarin at +2. Library search, the skill of using databases, data terms, libraries, and other compiled information sources to find facts. With a skill of +2, you can use most simple databases. With a skill of +6, you can easily access the Library of Congress. At +9, you can comprehend almost any public database and find very obscure facts. Mathematics, the skill of understanding calculations and mathematical formulas. At +3, you have the ability to add, subtract, divide, and multiply. At +4, you can do algebra and geometry. At +6, you can perform calculus. At +9, you can deduce your own mathematical formulas. Physics, the ability to calculate physical principles such as gas pressures, mechanical energies, etc. The skill requires a basic mathematics skill of +4. Linguistic families. Languages group together into families sharing many common root words and sentence structures. Once you've learned one language in a linguistic family, you may learn any other language in a related linguistic family at -1 to the normal IP costs. The values in parentheses are the IP multipliers for learning the languages in that family. African 2, Bantu, Fonte, Ashanti, Congo, Zulu, Swahili, Black Folk. Baltic 2, Lithuanian, Estonian, Latvian, Finnish. Celtic 2, Gaelic, Welsh, Breton. Farsi 2, Germanic 1, Danish, Dutch, English, German, Norwegian, Swedish, Yiddish. Greek 2, Japanese 2, Korean 2, Pacific Islander Group 2, Micronesian, Tagalong, Polynesian, Javanese, Malayan, Sudanese, Indonesian, Hawaiian. Romantic 1, French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Latin. Semitic 1, Arabic, Hebrew. Sino-Tibetan and Southeast Asian 3, Burmese, Cantonese, Mandarin, Thai, Tibetan, Vietnamese. Slavic 3, Bulgarian, Russian, Czech, Polish, Ukrainian, Slavic. Programming, the required skill to write programs and to reprogram computer systems. This skill does not allow players to actually do repairs on a computer. This requires electronics. With a programming skill of +1, you can do simple basic programs. A programming skill of +3 or better allows you to know some higher level languages and be able to write reasonably complex programs, including video games. Players with a programming skill of +6 or better are considered to be professionals who can build operating software, design mainframe systems, and hold down a steady job at your average Silicon Valley firm. With a programming skill of +9 or better, other programmers speak your name with reverence. You invented Q? Wow! Young hackers set out to crack your systems, and and any computer software you design instantly gets used by every business application in the world. Shadow/track, the skill of shadowing and following people. This skill is primarily used in urban or inhabited areas rather than in wilderness, where the skill of survival incorporates tracking game in the wilds. Stock market, the ability to play the stock market, engage in routine stock transactions, and manipulate stocks professionally. At +2, you know enough to invest in junk bonds and lose your shirt. At +6, your investments pay off 75% of the time. At +9, you are a major heavy on the market, routinely dabble in international stocks, and can write learned articles on the subject of investment. System knowledge, basic knowledge of the geography of the net, its lore and history, as well as knowledge of the important computer systems, their strengths and weaknesses. At +2, you can generally navigate around the net and know where the local places are. At +6, you know the locations of most places in the net and have a working understanding of its largest and most well-known systems. At +9, you know the entire net like the back of your hand, know the general layouts of the important systems cold, and are aware of the layouts for the rest of them. Teaching, the skill of imparting knowledge to someone else. If you don't think this is a skill, you ought to try it sometime. Players may not teach any skill unless they have a higher skill level than the student. The referee is the final arbiter of how long it takes to teach a skill. At a teaching skill of +3 or better, you can professionally teach students up to a high school. At +6, you know enough to be a college professor if you wanted. At +9 or greater, you are recognized by others in the field as good enough to guest lecture at MIT or Caltech. Your texts on the subject are quoted as the major references, and you might have a TV show on the equivalent of the PBS channel. Wilderness survival, the required skill for knowing how to survive in the wilds. Knowledge includes how to set traps, forage for wood, track game, build shelters, make fires. The average Boy Scout has a survival of +3. A Special Forces Green Beret has a survival of +6 or above. Grizzly Adams, mountain man of the wilderness, would have a +9 or +10 survival skills. Blackhand popped the submachine gun hidden in his left arm while bringing the monoblade up in the other hand. There was a spray of blood as the tech katana connected with the ninja's throat. Zoology, knowledge of life forms, biological processes, and their relation to the environment. At +2, you know the most common animals. At +5, you know not only well-known animals, but also about many exotic and endangered species. At +8, you are knowledgeable on almost all animals, know their habits well, and have a +1 advantage to any wilderness survival skills. You know where to find the game. Reflex skills. Archery, the skill required to use bows, crossbows, and other arrow-based ranged weapons. See handgun for details. Athletics, this skill is required for accurate throwing, climbing, and balancing. It combines the basic elements of any high school level sports program. At +3 and above, you are the equivalent of a real high school jock. At +5 and above, you can perform in college level competitions. At +8 and above, you are of Olympic or professional caliber. Brawling, the skill of fighting man-to-man with fists, feet, and other parts of the body. Brawling is not a trained skill. It is learned on the street by getting into a lot of fights. Unlike martial arts, there are no specialized attacks and no damage bonuses based on level of mastery. Dance, the specific skill needed to become a professional dancer. A trained dancer +4 or greater can successfully dance for payment in a small club or dance troops. Dancers +6 or greater will be considered to be of a professional caliber and regularly give performances and have fans. Dancers of +9 or greater are of star caliber, have a large number of fans, and may be recognized on the street. Dodge and escape. This skill is required to dodge attacks and escape grapples and holds. If an attack is made without your knowledge, you may not apply this skill to your defense roll. Driving. This skill allows you to pilot all ground vehicles like cars, trucks, tanks, and hovercraft. This skill is not usable for piloting aircraft. A skill of +3 is equal to that of a very good, non-professional driver. A skill of +6 allows you to drive with the skill of a moderately skilled race driver. And driver with a skill of +8 or greater will be nationally known as a racer, regularly win championship races, and possibly have access to the most advanced ground vehicles available, as long as he makes an endorsement. Fencing, the mastery of swords, rapiers, and monoblades. A fencing skill +3 allows you to be competent with a blade. A skill of +5 makes you fairly skilled. A fencing skill of +6 might win you the national fencing competitions. A skill of +8 will get you a reputation for being a true swordsman of duelist caliber. People like D'Artagnan or Miyamoto Musashi have skills of +10. They are legendary masters of the blade, the mention of whom will cause all but the stupidest young bravo to run for cover. Handgun. You must have the skill to effectively use handguns of any type, including cyberware types. At +2, you can use a handgun effectively on a target range, though combat will still rattle you. At a +5, you are as skilled as most military officers or policemen. At +7, you can do the sort of fancy shooting you see on TV, and have begun to get a reputation of being good with a gun. At +8, you are recognized gunslinger with a rep. The very sound of your name makes some people back down in fear. At a +10, you are a legendary gunslinger, feared by all except the stupidest young punks who keep trying to take you in innumerable gunfight challenges. Heavy weapons. The required skill for using grenade launchers, autocannons, mortars, heavy machine guns, missiles, and rocket launchers. At level +5, skill would be equivalent to a general military heavy weapons training course, giving the users the ability to use any or all of these weapon types. Martial arts. This skill covers any type of trained fighting style using hands, feet, or specialized martial arts weapons. You must elect a style of martial art and take a separate skill for each style. For example, you would have to take karate and judo separately, spending points for each one. Difficulty modifiers are listed in the brackets or parentheses next to each skill listed below. The primary advantage to martial arts styles is that each one has what are called key attacks, attacks that reflect particular strengths of the style. When a key attack is used, there is a to-hit bonus based on the attack type and martial arts type. A full table key attacks is listed in Friday Night Firefight, page 100. The second advantage of martial arts styles is that there is a damage bonus on attacks equal to the level of martial arts skill. For example, a master with +10 Kung Fu skill would add 10 points to his damage. This can be a formidable advantage, particularly in head strikes, which deal double damage. Martial arts forms includes Aikido, 3. This form relies on using the opponent's strength and momentum against him. It's a perfect form of stopping an opponent peacefully while making yourself very hard to hit. Key attacks are blocks and parries, dodges, throws, holds, escapes, chokes, sweeps, trips and sweeps, and grapples. Animal Kung Fu, 3. These are forms based on animal movements such as crane, mantis, tiger, leopard, and dragon forms. These attacks are fast and dangerous, with a style that is exciting and flashy. Key attacks include strikes, punches, kicks, blocks and parries, sweeps and trips. Boxing, 1. The manly art of fisticuffs. This form delivers lightning punches and a tight blocking defense. Key attacks are punches, blocks, and parries. Capoeira, 3. Created by Caribbean slaves, this form combines dance-like movements with fast kicks and low line sweeps. It is a relatively unknown form and can be combined with dance moves to disguise its true power. Key attacks are punches, kicks, blocks, and parries, dodges and sweeps, and trips. Choi Li Foot, 3. Descended directly from the ancient Shaolin temples, this form combines powerful roundhouse blows and sweeping kicks into a dynamic fighting style. Key attacks are strikes, punches, kicks, blocks and parries, dodges, throws, and sweeps and trips. Judo, 1. This system was designed as a sport form, but it is very effective in combat as well. It uses throws and sweeps to knock down the opponent. Key attack types include dodges, throws, holds, escapes, sweeps, and trips, and grapples. Karate 2, the Japanese version of Kung Fu. This style uses straight-line movements and powerful blows. Variations include Shotokan and Kempo, each with their own special moves. Key attacks are punches, kicks, and blocks and parries. Taekwondo, 3, a very fast and precise form, with graceful movements and some aerial kicks. Key attacks include strikes, punches, kicks, blocks and parries, and dodges. Thai kickboxing, 4, one of the deadliest forms in existence. This style is known for blinding kicks, delivered with incredible power. Key moves include strikes, punches, kicks, blocks and parries, and grapples. Wrestling, 1. This form combines techniques of Olympic and professional wrestling. The style uses a wide variety of throws and holds to incapacitate the opponent. Key attacks include throws, holds, escapes, chokes, sweeps, trips, and grapples. Melee, the ability to use knives, axes, clubs, and other hand-to-hand weapons in combat. Note, when using non-ranged cyber weapons such as rippers, scratchers, slice and dices, cyber beasts, and battle gloves, you must use this skill. Motorcycle, the required skill to operate motorcycles, cyber bikes, and other 2- and 3-wheeled vehicles. Operate heavy machinery, the required skill to operate tractors, tanks, very large trucks, and construction equipment. Piloting. In general, this is the skill of controlling aircraft. Aircraft are broken into categories: gyro and rotorcraft, fixed-wing aircraft, dirigibles, and vector thrust aerodynes, AVs. A piloting skill +1 allows you to take off and land safely in good weather conditions. A piloting skill +3 or more makes you a trained pilot, able to engage in most combat situations or bad weather. Pilots with a skill of +6 or greater are veteran pilots, able to handle themselves in almost any situations, including aerobatic maneuvers. Pilots with a skill +9 or greater are so good they have a rep as pilots, and are widely known among the piloting fraternity for having the right stuff. Pilot Gyro 3, the ability to pilot all types of rotor wing aircraft, including gyros, copters, and ospreys. Pilot Fixed Wing 2, the ability to pilot fixed wing jets and light aircraft. Ospreys may be flown with this skill, but only in the straight-ahead, non-hover mode. Pilot Dirigible 2, the ability to pilot all lighter-than-air vehicles, including cargo dirigibles, blimps, and powered balloons. Pilot Vectored Thrust Vehicle, the skill of piloting all types of vectored thrust vehicles, including hovercrafts, hover rafts, and AV-4, 6, and 7 vehicles. Rifle, you must have the skill to use rifles/shotguns effectively. See handguns for limitations and modifiers. Stealth 2, the skill of hiding in shadows, moving silently, evading guards, etc. A stealth skill +1 is about the level of a very sneaky 10-year-old stealing cookies. At +3, you are able to get past most guards, or your parents if you've been grounded. At +6, you are good enough to slip smoothly from shadow to shadow and not make any noise. At +8, you are equal to most ninja warriors. At +10, you move as silently as a shadow, making the ninjas sound like elephants. Submachine gun. You must have the skill to use any type of machine gun effectively. See handguns for limitations and modifiers. A lot of solos think you don't need any tech skills. They think that when they need to get a fast fix-up, they'll just put the lean on the nearest techie, and that'll do it. Yeah, sure, the guy who doesn't know how his hardware works is gonna find himself groveling at his techie's feet when the chips are down. Because you can't intimidate nothing when your spinal column's locked up. Morgan Blackhand, The Enforcer's Handbook. Technical skills. Aerotech 2, the required skill for repairing fixed-wing aircraft, including Ospreys, jets, and light aircraft. With a skill +3, you can perform most routine maintenance tasks. With a skill +6, you can do engine teardowns and major structural repairs. With a skill +9 or better, you are capable of designing and building your own aircraft. AV Tech 3, the required skill for repairing all ducted fan aerodyne vehicles. At +3, you can perform routine maintenance. At +6, you can tear down engines and modify an AV. At +10, you can design your own AV on common airframes. Basic Tech 2, the required skills for building and repairing simple mechanical and electrical devices, such as car engines, television sets, etc. With a basic skill of +3 or better, you can fix minor car problems, repair basic wiring, etc. A basic tech skill of +6 or better can repair stereos and TVs, rebuild an engine, etc. A basic tech skill of +9 or better can build a simple computer from scratch, put together a race car engine, and maintain any kind of industrial machinery. However, they do not know enough specialized knowledge to apply it to complex things, such as aircraft, just like Mr. Goodwrench doesn't know how to build and service an F-16. Cryotank operation, the required skill for operating, repairing, and maintaining life suspension and body chilling devices. A minimum skill of +4 is required to chill down a healthy person. A minimum skill of +6 for chilling a wounded person. Cyberdeck Design 2, the required skill for designing cyberdecks. At level +4, you can modify an existing cyberdeck for greater speed or memory. At level +6, you can design a deck equal to most existing designs. At +8, you can design decks that are substantially improved over existing designs. Panzers, AVs, gyros, dirigibles, I've jacked them all. Give me a couple of skill chips and a bottle of tequila, and I could steer the frackin' Hindenburg through an outside loop. Razorjack. Cybertech 2, the required skill for repairing and maintaining cyberware. At level +2, you can keep your cyberware tuned up and can replace its power batteries. At level +6, you can strip down most cyberware and even make simple modifications. At level +8, you can design your own cyberware to order. Demolitions 2. This skill allows the character to be knowledgeable in the use of explosives, as well as knowing the best explosives to use for which jobs, how to set timers and detonators, and how much explosives to use to accomplish a desired result. Disguise. The skill of disguising your character to resemble someone else, whether real or fictitious. This skill incorporates elements of both makeup and acting, although is not the same as the ability to actually be an actor. Electronics, the required skill for maintaining, repairing, and modifying electronic instruments such as computers, personal electronics, hardware, electronic security systems, cameras, and monitors. Electronic Security 2, the skill of installing or countering electronic eyes, electronic locks, bugs, and tracers security cameras, pressure plates, etc. At level plus 3, you can jimmy or install most apartment locks and security cams. At plus 6, you can override most corporate office locks and traps. At plus 9, you can enter most high security areas with impunity. First Aid. This skill allows the user to bind wounds, stop bleeding, and revive a stunned patient. See Trauma Team page 116 for details. Forgery. The skill of copying and creating false documents and identifications. This skill may also be applied to the detection of same. If you can fake it, you can usually tell it's a fake as well. Gyrotech 3. The skill of repairing and maintaining rotor wing aircraft such as helicopters and gyrocopters. Paint or Draw, the skill of producing professional drawings. A skill of plus 3 allows you to produce stable modern art. A skill of plus 6 will produce artwork that is recognizable and extremely pleasant to the eye, as well as saleable. An artist with a skill of plus 8 or greater will be nationally known, have exhibits in galleries, and have other lesser artists studying his style in art school. Photography and Film, the skill of producing unprofessional caliber photographs or motion pictures. A skill of plus 2 allows you to make a decent home movie. A skill of plus 4 or better creates a work capable of winning amateur contests. A skill of plus 6 or better will produce work of the skill of the average Playboy cover or rock video. A photographer or cinematographer with a skill of plus 8 or better will be nationally known and probably famous. Pharmaceuticals 2. The skill of designing and manufacturing drugs and medicines. A minimum chemistry skill of plus 4 is required. At a plus 4, you can make it aspirin. At plus 6, you can make hallucinogens or antibiotics. At level plus 9, you can build designer drugs tailored to individual body chemistries. Pick Lock, the skill required to pick locks and break into sealed containers and rooms. At plus 3, you can jimmy most simple locks. At plus 6, you can crack most safes. At plus 9 or better, you have a rep as a master cracksman and are known to all the major players in the Cyberpunk world. Pickpocket, the required skill for picking pockets without being noticed, as well as shoplifting small items. For ideas on levels of ability, see Pick Lock above. Play Instrument, the skill of knowing how to play a musical instrument. You must take this skill separately for each type of instrument played. A skill plus 4 or higher will qualify your character to play professional gigs. A skill plus 8 and above will gain the musician some professional acclaim, possibly with recording contracts and command performances. At a plus 10, you are widely acclaimed, have lots of Grammys, and regularly jam with Carrie Uridine. Weaponsmith 2. The required skill for repairing and maintaining weapons of all types. At level plus 2, you can do repairs and field stripping. At level plus 6, you can repair all types of weapons and make simple modifications. At level plus 8, you can design your own weapons to order. Learning new skills and improving old ones. Players can improve their skills or begin new ones by accumulating improvement points, or IP. As you gain more IP, you'll record these points in the area next to the skills listing on your hard copy form. When you have collected enough improvement points in a skill, the skill's level increases by 1. The first level of a skill will always cost 10 IP. To determine how many points are required to raise a skill higher than this, multiply the current level of a skill by 10. This is how many points are required to raise a simple IP multiplier of 1 skill to the next level. Example, my brawling skill is at 4. To move it from a 4 to a 5, I will need 40 IP. To move it from 5 to 6 will require 50. IP multipliers. Not all skills are equally easy to learn. These skills have an additional IP multiplier, which multiplies the number of points required to learn the next level of skill. This extra cost will be noted in the skill's description. When I was downtime, between jobs, I made a fair living fixing aerodynes and choppers. Glad to see my military training paid off somewhere besides behind a gun sight. Ripperjack. Where did I learn? On the street of pain and the schoolyard of bad breaks. Unknown Rocker, 2018. Example, Choi Lee Foot has a multiplier of 3. To raise my Choi Lee Foot skill from a 4 to a 5 will require 120 IP, not 40. Getting more IP. There are 3 ways to accumulate improvement points: study and practice, being taught, and direct experience. In all 3 cases, the amount of improvement is determined by the referee of your game. Study and practice. In its simplest form, you get a how-to book and begin practicing. Study is pretty tough. You have no idea where to begin and no one to correct your mistakes. The biggest limit to this type of learning is that you can only improve your skill from a level of plus 0 to a level of plus 2. In general, it takes about 1 day of book learning to gain 1 IP. Being taught. Finding a teacher is far superior to self-teaching or book learning. The teacher must have a higher skill than the student and must have the time to teach you. How long this takes, of course, is determined by the referee. But even the most knowledgeable of teachers may not be able to transfer that knowledge. That's where the skill of teaching comes into play. The teacher must average his skill and the subject to be taught with his teaching skill. He may then teach the student up to that level of skill. How long this takes is, of course, up to the referee, who awards IP over the passage of time, usually 1 to 5 IP per lesson. Experience, still the best teacher. Whenever you do something well, the referee rewards you with improvement points right on the spot. The problem is that these points will be applied to the skill you were using when you got the reward. Therefore, if you want to get better in a particular skill, it's important to use that skill every chance you get. Referees should use an even hand when rewarding improvement points, not only rewarding players for doing things well, but also for demonstrating both role-playing ability and teamwork. In general, we suggest not awarding more than 6 points per skill per game session. IP Award Guideline Table. Award 1, use skills in area often, even if not effectively. 2, use skills effectively. 3, frequent and effective use of skill. 4, did something out of the ordinary with this skill. 5, very clever or effective use of this skill. 6, extremely clever or effective use of this skill. 7, skill was critical to player in this adventure session. 8, skill was critical to entire group this adventure session. 9, did something really incredible with this skill. Inventing new skills. You can also invent new skills to cover new needs, should you want to do so. To do so, you must convince the referee of your game to let you have that skill. You and the referee should work together to determine exactly what does this skill allow you to do, how, according to your character conception, did you acquire this skill, what are the specific limits of this skill, what can't I do with it, what stat is this skill connected to, and why. Referees should be careful to make sure that player skills are neither too specific, shoot .45 caliber handgun with laser sight, or too general, shoot anything well. You should insist on a middle ground which covers a general ability to use the skill, yet does not give the player an unreasonable advantage in all possible situations. Shoot handguns. The referee is always the final arbiter of decisions on skills. Another kind of experience, reputation. Reputation is a measure of things your character may do so well or badly that he has actually become well known for them. A reputation for something is always established by a character's actions, and is then awarded by the referee. Whenever a character encounters new people in new situations, his reputation may actually influence how they react to him. Sometimes this can be very good, other times it can be very bad. Example, Jake the Hammer is known far and wide as a street fighter. He is feared throughout Night City for his trademark killer punch. Over time, the referee has awarded Jake a reputation of 6 points. Anyone who meets Jake for the first time must roll higher than 6 on a 1d10 in order to have not heard of Jake's name. On this particular night, Jake swaggers into the Totentans and orders a drink. Down the bar, Ripperjack hears the bartender address Jake by name. Ripperjack puts 2 and 2 together, a 3 on a 1d10. This Jake must be the son of a gun who caught the Jack's kid brother in an alley and beat him to death with his metal-shod fists. Ripperjack's eyes flare and his teeth grind down. He pulls out his Minami 10 and blows a hole through Jake's back. Reputation table. 1. Anyone who was there at the time knows. 2. Stories have gotten around to immediate friends. 3. All your coworkers and casual acquaintances know. 4. Stories are all over the local area. 5. Your name is recognized by others beyond your local area. 6. You are known on sight by others beyond your local area. 7. A new story or 2 has been written about your exploits. 8. Your exploits regularly make the headlines and scream sheets. 9. Your exploits always make the scream sheets and TV. 10. You're known worldwide. Reputation can also be a disadvantage. Whenever you do something extremely uncool, show cowardice, desert, or betray someone, etc., the referee can still award you reputation points for these actions. The more points you score, the more likely people are to have heard about your infamous deeds. Once again, roll 1d10. However, this time they won't be impressed. If your rep is for cowardice, it can even work against you. Reputation in Cyberpunk has one other big effect, face downs. Remember, a lot of combat in this genre comes down to a duel of wills. Who's tougher, who's meaner, and who looks more ready to prove it. This often leads to what are called face downs, when 2 heavies on the street square off just before a fight, or to see who will back down from confrontation. When making a face down, both participants will roll 1d10 plus cool plus the reputation. Note, if one of the opponents has a reputation for cowardice, his value will be treated as a negative number. In a face down, the loser has the option of backing down or making any subsequent attacks against the particular opponent at a -3 due to fear, until he has successfully defeated that opponent once. On a tied roll, both parties are unsure and no penalties will be applied. Example, the Iron Master is a feared booster ganger known throughout Night City. In the middle of the slammer, he runs across an attractive young woman and her male companion. The Iron Master says, "Take a clue and vanish, kid trash. The input's with me now." The kid stands up and says, "Vanish yourself, Burn Brain." A face-off begins. The Iron Master is known all over the city, giving him a rep of 6. What he doesn't know is that the kid is a 5th Dan black belt in Kempo Karate. Although he's new in the zone and hasn't made much of a rep at 3, he is totally self-possessed and aware of his skills, cool of 10. The Iron Master may be tough, but he's mostly a bully. His cool is only 4, bolstered by his reputation, made on a few lucky fights. His total roll is 4 plus 4 plus his roll of 6, equaling 14. The kid's total is 3 plus 10 plus his roll of 3 plus equaling to 16. The Iron Master feels a strange unease, and as he stares at the calm, ready-to-rock kid, his eyes shift away and he backs down with a grunt. A lot of battles get won before the first shot is fired. When your eyes meet his, and he knows that you're willing to pay the price in blood. His blood. Your blood. It doesn't matter to you. You're committed. Morgan Blackhand, The Enforcer's Handbook. Okay, so that was Section 4, Working, explaining all the skills and their skill checks. I find this to be the weakest part of Cyberpunk 2020 by far, simply because when you get to the intelligence stats, you can notice a sort of redundancy start to occur with the whole system at large. In a system like D&D, when you need to make an intelligence check about a general history of something, it would just fall under history. But in this game, there's so many different things that could quantify or qualify as history that it kind of gets lost in the... It just gets lost in the sauce. For example, education and general knowledge, that would seem like the general overall what do I know sort of situation skill. But then you have a specific history skill, and I guess that could, you could argue that history is somehow different from education and general knowledge, but in my opinion, that is exactly what that is. Education and general knowledge includes history. It includes mathematics. In fact, like mathematics here, say that you need a +3 to have the ability to do simple algebra, like adding, subtracting, dividing, and multiplying. No, at +4 you needed to have algebra and geometry. But at a simple +2, you have a high school equivalency of knowledge. It just seems like that there's a little too much to even care about. If I were going to like trim this up, I would definitely get rid of half of these skills, because like, when would you ever need to use the geology skill? When are you ever going to be identifying rocks and like nature stuff that you can't do with like, say, wilderness survival? Also, the fact that brawling and martial arts are two different things, I would assume that martial arts would have let you use melee weapons, but no, that's a whole skill in and of itself. In order to use any melee weapon, and even the cybernetics that you want to pick up and use, possibly for martial arts, you need to invest not in any martial art period, but in the melee of it. I guess there might be certain weapons, cybernetic weapons or regular martial arts weapons, that'll be marked as martial arts weapons. I've gone through weapons before, but only with like the guns and how gun combat works. So it just seems like there's way more than is even necessary, and maybe just to fill out the book so that it feels like it's a legitimate role-playing game. I don't know if Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition has this many skills. I know Pathfinder has a lot of skills. I don't think any of them are that redundant. They all serve a purpose and none of them truly overlap with each other. This, however, just takes the cake. If I were to be running this game, rules as written, it would be very difficult to try to quantify it. Also, too, for a lot of skills, they have thresholds, but they don't have like the same thresholds. They have differing thresholds. Some have a threshold of +3, some have a threshold of +4. There was an example a while back where Johnny Silverhand had to try to pick a lock. He had a +3 thanks to his pickup skills, but if he only had a +2, would he even be able to attempt it? Is it like a way that like locks you out of even trying? Or is it just an example of how skilled you would be with that? because sometimes it sounds like it's trying to give you an example of how proficient you are based on the number that you have, and sometimes it's telling you that you can only do a certain thing or have a certain expectation of what you're able to do based on a threshold that you reach. The experience point system is a little brutal, especially with some of the skills having multipliers. I guess that's not to exploit anything, but also it's just interesting to know how a referee would actually allow someone to get awarded the correct IP points, because there's no exact guide. There is an exact guide. There's the IP award guideline table, but it's so vague and up to the referee's call that it's almost not even worth having any sort of rule set. You should just tell the referee, do whatever you think is appropriate. Let them learn at a pace that you deem acceptable, which they do say that, but they say a lot of things that seem contradictory to each other. So in order to play this game rules as written, it would be very, very difficult. And someone with a better understanding of the system than I would probably explain it in a much more simplified and digestible way. I do like the reputation system. It's interesting though, because it implies that your reputation, you can only have one reputation. So if you were a coward like 6 big times and you were a brave guy 7 times, but then you were also a cool guy 9 times, where would your reputation be? Because as far as I can see on the character sheet, you only have 1 slot for reputation. So is it going to be that the cool guy thing supersedes everything else and you get a 9 for that? Or is it that you made yourself a cool guy and everything else gets shunted to the back because it's either the latest thing or the thing you're most known for, but you don't get the full bonus, so you only get it like 9 minus the highest brave guy thing of 7, so you'd only get a 2 to reputation. It's interesting. There's a lot of questions that go unanswered. And it seems like in the inventing new skills section, it seems contradictory as to like my understanding of how weapons work and how you apply bonuses. The example they give is, don't make it general, but don't make it hyper-specific. So it says, shoot a .45 caliber handgun with a laser sight, or a shoot anything well skill, or a shoot handgun skill. That right there is what made me go, wait a minute. Because when you go back to reflexes, you can see that handgun itself is a skill. So does that mean that this guy was trying to argue for weapon specialization? Or does that mean that the handgun skill doesn't apply to all and any handgun that you find? It seems like it wasn't very well thought through. I don't know if they addressed this in red, but if anyone can tell me, I would appreciate it. But yeah, as far as Cyberpunk 2020 goes as a system, skills is by far the weakest part of the entire thing, and that's so disappointing. It does seem like it's super in-depth, but really, it's just very wide and shallow. With most dice systems, that's exactly what it's going to be. You're just taking the addition of numbers and then putting them together. And I'm not saying that it would be good to like have an algebraic equation or to square numbers or to take the quotient of a number. It just seems like they think that the more skills you have to work with, the better. And all these skills seem super niche, especially the intelligence one, like they keep hammering on about. So after reading this through, I think I'm not going to sweat specific skills too much. I might myself, for my own game, narrow down intelligence in terms of hyper-specific things. Like, I don't think I'm going to let my players choose geology as a stat. I don't know when I'd ever use that. Maybe to find like a hidden base out in the desert. But then I would make them roll a wilderness survival for that instead of specifically geology. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the system. Until next time.